before we record, that'll be Alton will be chairing that. Frank Waxter, Brian Tibbs, Dr. Ash, and Melanie Doss. It is. Let me get the timestamps. We're a little later, as you can see, than we expected. We're going to record this and put this on the website later. We won't be able to communicate except through chat with our folks in presentations, which is fine, as long as we can get this done. So,
thank you.
That'll be for the 11 o'clock. But Chair, if you would like to,
can I please call the meeting to order officially at 10:37 a.m. And Glenn, would you mind doing a roll call?
All right. Okay. We've got Alton Heathcote.
I'm here.
Frank Waxter.
Here.
Brian Tibbs.
Here.
Dr. Ash. Here. Melanie Doss.
Here.
All right, great. We have quorum.
Very good. Thank you very much. As everybody knows, we thought we were going to have $450,000, but we wound up having $400,000 to distribute among the colleges. We had 17 applications this year, which was a couple fewer than we had before. But has everybody had a chance or an opportunity to review the menagerie of a spreadsheet? And I apologize for that. Does anybody have any questions about the allocations of the recommendations for the awards?
I have a question about a specific funding request from the University of Tennessee.
Okay.
Architecture and interior architecture program.
Okay.
They have an honoraria for invited design review jurors, and they've asked for $10,000. And I know that the total that is being granted.
Melanie, is this for architecture or is this for interior?
It's combined. Their programs are combined.
Okay.
And so I was just questioning whether or not that is an acceptable request for funding through a grant.
It has been. We have actually done that before, where they want to bring people in and pay the cost associated with their travel to come in and review senior projects or design projects, and offer critiques, review comments, et cetera. So yes, that has been. There's a precedent for it. It has been approved before. Good question.
Alton, I have a question, and it relates to what Melanie just asked, is why should the UT Knoxville architecture and the interior design be paired together, shouldn't the interior design part be under the interior design distribution? Separate. I think they ask for it together.
It is.
Shouldn't they be asked to actually break those out?
That's sort of their decision. In fact, we don't kind of get to control how they do that, but I would strongly recommend, in fact, Glenn, we may want to send a sort of a memorandum to them or call them and let them know that in the future they would probably be better served to split those out individually. That way they would be entitled to receive funding for both interior design and separately segregated architecture. They actually have done this before too, Frank. They did it this way before. But I agree, that's a good point. We probably, if it's the will of the committee, we can ask Glenn to make that recommendation, or at least offer that recommendation to them. Does everybody?
As far as instructions go, since we're past the deadline, we can just give them those instructions, which I'm fine with, because we actually need to. I saw some came under what they requested less than they could have had because of their enrollment as well. So if it be the will of the committee, I would recommend that we reach out to those folks as well and say that they could request more at the next one as well.
It would make, if they did that, it would make the spreadsheet a lot less lengthy.
I when I saw that when it broke down and I saw some of the allowances that were potentially missed, and to your point, since we have three distinct categories as well, that I think that's a great instructional letter that we can just, and it's just email for me to say, look, you could go this direction at the next round of grants.
I think, an email is okay, but I still think that we probably need to give them more specific instruction, I guess, because they're missing an opportunity to get more fun. Let me ask you this: are the colleges actually combined? I mean, I know they're probably domiciled in the same location, but so they're completely separate.
They're in the same building,
Right.
but there is a separate program for interior architecture from architecture.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do architects, people pursuing a license in architecture, attend or participate in classes for interior? I'm hesitant to call this interior architecture.
They probably do. There is probably some overlap, but it is not. They have their separate curriculum.
Sure. Okay.
Minor in one. They can major in one and minor in the other.
Typically, if it's like a notice, I'll send a formal letter, but typically the reason why I use email is because that invites sort of a chat option so that they can go back and forth until they land the plane on what exactly they're trying to hit. And so that's the only reason why I recommend doing the email, because then we already have the direct contact information, so we know they get it, because we get the receive report on that.
I just want to make sure that because I agree that when I saw how they did it again, I thought, wow, they're not really capitalizing on this opportunity very well by combining it. I think for them it may be a little more, rather than just a generic email to everybody, maybe
Right,
target them and tell them specifically, hey guys, you're not capitalizing on
Oh,
this.
that's exactly what my intent was.
Okay.
I should have clarified, but just to those schools that would be targeted, that are the ones that are sort of leaving something on the table. A couple of the engineering programs that didn't get as much as they could have based on their enrollment, and then of course those programs that didn't separate off and give us two separate proposals.
Okay.
So it would be that school, instructions to that regard, but then also those engineering programs. So that way we've covered all of our bases, so they know exactly that, hey, it's you're the ones that have opportunity to capitalize, and here's where you can make those gains.
I would think if they knew that they could break it down independently, that they would and try to capitalize on that.
They also share a lot of the same staff, so sometimes that's why they don't do it, is because they want one proposal, and so that.
Well, it's easier,
Yeah.
obviously. I mean, one person can do the proposal as opposed to two different divisions having to complete the information, but somebody had to put all this together, and they could certainly share with whoever their counterpart is, either architect or interior architect.
Watson, my thought is, they can do it this way if they want, but I think we should, make the offer to them is, hey, you have another option here. And I maybe that's the will of the board, I don't know, but we think you should look at breaking these out, and whether that's to your advantage or not. Maybe it's not. I don't
Oh,
know, but
I think
it would be.
I think it would be too.
But just recommend that, and if they decide to keep them together, has anybody got a problem with that?
I think for this year, this is pretty well set. But hopefully, as probably everybody remembers, we had asked for $450,000. Glenn, I asked him again. He shared with me this morning before the meeting that is in the budget for this year. That doesn't mean it's going to get approved, but we've asked for $450,000. So we ought to specifically instruct them for next year in these applications to please make sure that they consider breaking this out and doing it independently. That's what you were saying, right, Frank?
Yeah.
And that's what Glenn. That was your directive. You were going to take that approach,
Yeah,
right?
it's on my action item list, so I'll be sure to shoot that.
Well,
email.
shoot. Okay.
So yeah, no, it just, even if I just, in the interest of being helpful, When I was just looked at it, I saw that myself, and it was my intent to reach out to them anyway and just sort of nudge them along and say, hey, there's some opportunity here.
Okay,
So,
thank
but you
you.
guys are all over it. That's good.
Thank you for doing that. Good recommendation. Any other questions? Do we need a motion to make the awards?
Yes, sir. And then that would be the committee's recommendation would be the motion. Then we just get a second in the committee report and make it all official.
Okay, so we have a plan in front of us. Would anybody like to make a motion to either approve or make recommendation for changes to the award recommendation?
I so move to accept the grant distribution as presented.
Good, thank you, Melanie. We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
I think Frank was.
Okay, he beat me to it.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Do we need a roll call?
We don't. That's good. That voice vote will be fine, and then that'll be the recommendation when we do our committee reports near the end of our agenda for the full board, and then we'll just need so that will be your motion as a committee, and then we'll just need a second from the full board and then make it all official.
Okay. Do we go ahead and say all in favor, please say.
Sure.
All in favor, please indicate so by saying aye. Any opposed or abstaining? We have a recommendation.
Right. And we won't be adjourning since we're just running the committees all together. At this point, we are free to move to the architect committee. And we just have one order of business before us. If it pleases the chair to call order.
Yes. Would you roll call as well?
All right, sir. All right. Rick Thompson. Brian Tibbs.
Here.
Frank Wagster.
Here.
And also, it is, just for the record, 10:48. Okay. We have quorum chair. And so at this point, I think we're ready to look at that application in front of us. Let me just sort of summarize what the issue is, if that's okay, and then I'll let you guys sort of hash it out. All right. 622502A states, an accredited degree in architecture shall be one that was accredited by the National Architectural Accrediting Board, NAAB, at the time of graduation, or graduation was not more than 2 academic years prior to accreditation. For the purpose of this chapter, a state-supported school of architecture approved by the Tennessee Higher Education Commission is deemed to have an accredited degree program. Part B says approval of a curriculum that is not accredited under the terms of subsection A, just mentioned, shall be at the discretion of the board. And so, and upon the basis of certified information submitted by the school for the full period attended by the applicant. So what we're looking at then is the board's exercise of that discretion as if they want to determine if the application before them would be approved by the board, since it's not NAAB accredited. And then maybe some discussion as to what that certified information would look like.
And doesn't that make it a 4-year experience requirement?
The full period attended by the applicant, so you would need, like, they couldn't, you would, if you had to like transfers all over the place, you'd have to separate all that out.
I was thinking what you just read for someone that, in the law, what it says is a person in that situation has, a NAB accredited degree is a 3-year requirement for experience. I believe what you just read has a 4-year requirement for experience.
I'm going to let Stuart go there first, and give him a little time. 622502B.
And while he's doing that committee, so this one had come to me to where I was to approve it or not, and I wanted to just be clear about it because it was not accredited, and I didn't think that the information necessarily that they sent certified it, but this is, I said, we haven't met in a while anyway, so I thought maybe we could kind of just make sure we're all on one accord because it's always easy when it's just NAB accredited. So.
And I guess I do have one question. This isn't the first one of these we've gotten where somebody has a degree from a non-NAB accredited school, and when it comes to us for initial application, they've already taken the exam and passed all the 6 parts of it. And so when it comes to us, turning somebody down that's gone through all this and already passed all the exam requirements is not putting us in a good situation. The question to me is, how did they get to take the exam in the first place without meeting the requirements of the Tennessee?
In those cases where it's comedy, it's not a problem because they're already licensed somewhere else, because not everyone has the same statute as we do.
Talking about initial.
And then,
Okay.
right, and then in those cases where they have initial, I believe this one is in front of us is initial. In those cases, eligibility would just be determined with a heavy disclaimer. You tell them, hey, look, it's not a guaranteed, but and we've had cases like that before. We say you can take the exam, but it's not. It's not necessarily going to be ratified. It's not a guarantee towards licensure. Some folks choose to do that, but again, I wouldn't.
Would this person have gone through that?
I haven't looked at the application. I think this one, yeah.
This is for initial.
Yeah, this finish.
But, you don't just let anybody that wants to take the exam. There has to
Can
be
you
some-
repeat your question?
I think I can. Yeah. How does a person get to the point that this one is, where they graduated from a school that's non-NAB accredited, and we see in the NCARB review that it's put on hold or it doesn't meet Tennessee's requirements, but somehow or other they've already taken the exam and passed all the 6 parts of it, passed the exam. How did they get to be allowed to take the exam knowing that they don't meet our requirements?
There's that's the administrative question. I think I can help with that one. Stuart, the question that they were asked earlier was 622502B. Is that referring to a 4-year degree? That's what he was asking earlier.
No, that refers to they've got to have an extra year of experience.
Well, under 622501, Section 2, an applicant who is a graduate of a non-accredited architectural curriculum of not less than 4 years in curriculum approved by the board and 5 years of practical experience
5 years.
in architectural practical training satisfactory to the board, of which not more than 1 year of architectural work in school may be concurrent.
So
It's 5.
what I'm saying is their experience, there's more experience required than just a NAB accredited, having a
Correct.
NAB accredited degree.
And now to the eligibility, because I think they both work together. It's because testing is being decoupled large in part. You see that with engineers. We're seeing that with architects as well. And so some folks they want to take the test earlier than later. And so they're allowed to do that. But again, they still have to apply.
It's almost like and I'm not trying to change anything here, but it's almost like I'd want to say if you're graduated from a NAB accredited degree and we allow them to take the exam earlier, that's fine. But if you're not, it's almost like I want to say you need your 5 years before you can take the exam. And I think there's another part there about somebody that's just graduated from a school, not a architectural rated degree. I think that's 7 years requirement.
I think that it's not statutorily required that they wait. We give them the option, but we advise them that they still have to make application and what those hurdles look like. So if they decide to go in that direction, then at that point, I myself would probably just go get licensed elsewhere or get my experience and then come before the board. But since it's not statutorily required, since there is some discretion, they're permitted to take the exam.
So we should feel comfortable in turning them down even though they've passed the exam.
If we did.
That's where your discretion lies. What you want to do with that is up to you.
Is there a letter sent to them spelling this out, that you can do this at your own peril?
Well, there's when they first reach out, there's a statutory reference there as well, and that spells out the requirements. And so if you were to go and apply, it'll tell you like what the requirements are, and if you don't meet those requirements, then at that point it's a judgment call from them. So there is a notice there. We don't positively necessarily discourage them from doing that by saying I wouldn't do it, but they're aware that at this time, they don't meet the requirements. But oftentimes, folks will choose to take the exam anyway, thinking that they'll get their experience later, or they'll get comedy somewhere else where there's not the NAAB requirements. And so they, whatever is in their mind, I can't really unscramble all of that. But to say they're aware of the requirements, statute doesn't require them to have met all the other requirements to take the test. So since that's decoupled, so at that point, it's optional.
So going forward, would it make sense for us to look at like you just read, there's 5 years experience required before you can be, under this situation, before you can be licensed. Do we say, okay, you've passed the exam, then check to see if they've got 5 years experience? And if they don't, then they're where we should align.
That sounds prudent. But of course, that's up to discussion for the committee that's going to be reviewing these applications.
So in this case, how many years experience
think
does
it's
this person have?
I think it's 8, the way I'm looking at it, if I'm looking at it right. Rick, did you have something you were going to jump in a minute ago?
Yes. One of the flags that I saw in referencing back to NCARB was that they noted that he did not satisfy Asian requirements. So that was one of the reasons that I had some concern.
Yeah.
And we read and architect licensed in a state not meet.
And you got to keep in mind too, like NCARB, when they're getting these, they're going up basically a template. It's like a grid. They're reading the grid and they see it's not NABA, so it doesn't meet the requirements because they can't exercise discretion. That belongs to the board. And so what they're saying is we can't approve it, so it has to come back to you to make that determination. And from what I can tell here, it looks like he's sitting at about 8 years experience, 8, 9.
Yeah, that was my point. It's their checklist of items as we have a checklist, and so they point that out. And when I look for is education requirement,
Me too.
that's why.
And me too. Yeah, that was why I was the same way on it. But I think based off what Stuart read and based on your comment about 5 years, that this candidate or whatever has met 8. Feel comfortable moving forward with it potentially. If there is any more discussion or motion about that.
That doesn't require a motion, does it?
No, it's not. It's just signatures from the reviewers is all. So nothing formal from the board. This is just your opportunity because we can't have the discussion in a corner with 2 or more are gathered, So we had to do that under the Sunshine Law in a committee. But there's no action required, just a signature from those reviewers.
Okay.
And I don't recall the 8 years of who he had the experience under, whether it was with an architect. I apologize for meets that criteria, then I don't think there's a problem.
Okay. I think that's the only thing we had on our agenda. Was there anything else, Glenn?
Oh, that was it. And that was a good discussion. I mean, we have to have those. Engineers had theirs, I think maybe the last meeting or so, where we had to sort of, separate all that out and kind of get to some sort of consensus going forward. So we're all doing the same thing.
And back to the notification of what that means, 5, 7, however many years it is, that's in the law and rules. And if I'm applying, I should be looking at that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
and it's listed on the application when
Yeah.
they apply, and then plus it comes to our license text, our ARB2. So Tammy gets that. If they don't meet the requirements before she forwards it on, we'll let them know, and then so they don't have to go any further, at that point. So.
It was flagged even for us as we were reviewing it. So it was flagged, but I'm glad we had this discussion.
yeah, and that's why it's worthwhile to have that discussion.
Yeah.
I know it delayed it about 30 days, but
Yeah.
it helps moving forward.
That sounds great. Well, at that point, unless there's any new business that you would like to discuss, I think Somehow we made it to 11:01. Can you believe that? So that's amazing.
Architects.
So you know what that means? So I think
Hey,
what-
for the record, you were 13 minutes and the grants to higher education was 11.
Look, Alton. let's just leave it there. Architects.
So I guess my question is an approval, or we?
That's still up to you, but it does sound like to me, and then I'll summarize, and then if I'm wrong, just someone correct me. But it sounds like to me that if they meet the experience requirement, have an architectural degree, although not NAAB accredited, and they've passed the test, that then it seems like the consensus was to approve those applications. Is that where we were at? Okay. All right. Yeah. Yes, sir. Sounds
Thank
great.
you.
So we'll just get those back to you with clean sheets, and then you can make that determination then and make it official. All right. Thank you so much. All right. Well, Rick, this is your last meeting, from what I understand, as chair, and then we're passing that gavel over there to the lady from Knoxville. So.
Correct.
The gentlewoman from Knoxville. Is that how they do it? I'm not very
Madam
official.
Chair.
Yeah, the Madam Chair.
Chair. Yeah.
So that's good. And that'll be, of course, in the December meeting per usual. So this will be your last one. So, but we are in that time. So if you're okay, no rest for the weary, I guess. Are we okay to launch off? If you want to call to order, I think we can do that.
Let's do. So
Okay.
It's on schedule.
Thank you, sir. It's 11:03 then. Let me go ahead and read us into read our notice of meeting. Notice of the October 5th, 2023 meeting of the Board of Architectural and Engineering Examiners was posted to the Board of Architectural and Engineering Examiners website on June 9th, 2022. The following agenda was posted September 28th, 2023. Let's go ahead and do roll call. We've got Rick Thompson,
Here.
Blair Parker.
Here.
I thought maybe he decided to walk out. Brian Tibbs.
Here.
Melanie Doss.
Here.
Frank Waxter. Rob Barrett.
Hello.
Dr.
Just
Ash.
wondering if anyone can hear me, because I'm not hearing anyone else.
I can hear you.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Oh, great, and I can hear you too. Thank you.
Okay, everybody, they can hear us.
Dr. Ash.
All together now.
Jason Carter. Jeff Nally. Alton Heathcote.
Tickled to be here.
All right. Eddie Jett.
Here.
And James Collins. Here. All right. We have quorum. That's everybody. So we'll move on to announcements. I was hoping that we would spend this time recognizing Mr. Campbell, but he had a scheduling conflict come up, so we won't have the honor and pleasure at this meeting. But December we'll make up for it and take care of him then. So he said he's looking like he's good for December. So we'll do that then. I didn't have any other announcements, but to say we do have the public comment section at the very end. So if there's anyone in the building, let me take a look. Please, if you were wanting to speak or address or do something or make comments as the public at the end of the meeting. If you're professional societies, no concern or worries. But if you're a public member, then please approach the podium, and then we'll read that list at that time and give you an opportunity to speak. All right. So I think we're ready then for professional society reports. Let's see if Casey, are you on the line? Casey Anderson. We're gonna have to speak to them in text, and then we can hear them though. So.
Excuse me.
Casey Anderson?
Pardon me. Do we have a minutes before approval of minutes?
Yes.
I guess I'm just running along, aren't I? So yes.
Yeah.
Oh, Casey, stand by. We've got a couple more items.
Can you
Thank
hear
you.
me?
All right. Yes, you're right.
Can y'all hear me?
Yes.
One second, Casey.
For all of you.
Okay, you're right. So let me. I was looking at my notes, but we do have the agenda in the August minute. So let's go ahead and do that first, and then we'll jump into professional society reports. And we do have Casey on standby, so that was confirmed. So the agenda then. I know you have a chance to look at that. Are there any adjustments or amendments to the agenda? No. Okay. We'll entertain a motion then to accept the agenda as written.
So moved.
All right. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay.
Aye.
Thank you, Chair. August minutes. We have a motion for the August minutes.
So moved.
Okay. You have a second?
Second. Comments? All in favor of the, by aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes carry.
Thank you, Chair.
And for the record, Matt, the incoming chair pointed that out, so you'll.
Boy, she's sharp. I'm tell you what, we're in good hands.
Excellent. Thank you.
All right. So professional society reports. Casey.
Casey, go ahead.
I didn't have anything. I just heard someone say Casey Anderson, so I thought I'd jump on and see if you need me.
It's just
Society reports.
Oh, are we on those already? Yeah, we can't hear the rest of the board meeting. Sorry. Does that mean yes, I'm supposed to talk now?
Yes, ma'am, it's your turn.
Okay, perfect. Well, thanks for having me. I apologize that I'm not there. I've been a little under the weather this week. Thought I'd spare you all that. I just really quickly wanted to go through the Tennessee Engineers Conference happened a few weeks ago. We were able to offer 13 PDHs. We had about 700 people there. So it was I think we're at a point now where as long as people are coming to that every other year, we will likely start offering an ethics piece of that every other year so that people can really get all of the PDHs they need for their licensure. Next year, that will be September 29th to October 1st of 2024. Also at the Franklin Marriott, so we're excited about that. We're hosting the risk strategies management seminar that is going to be focused on risk on December the 8th, Friday, December the 8th. That will be both live at Smith Sackman Reed or remote. You can access those either way. That is a joint meeting with the risk strategies team that does professional liability insurance as well as ACEC and AIA. So word of that will be going out probably later this week, tomorrow or Monday. We have a senior principals forum coming the second week of January that we're starting to put together. You should see information about that shortly soon. Leadership PE applications will be out next week, and I'm excited. There's so many deans on the call to let you all know that our scholarships will be out the first week of November. They will this year be a one-stop shop for the Tennessee Engineering Foundation scholarships, the ACEC scholarships, and the new NCEES scholarships for engineering. There will be one entry portal for all of those. So your students will only have to go through everything one time. We're using a new system that will also show them what percent is complete and is everything in, et cetera. And so we think it'll be a lot smoother and a lot easier for students to access that money. It also will allow us to send more people up to national to be eligible for the national scholarship awards, which are significant in nature. I think the top ones of those there's several that are $10,000 a piece. So we're excited about that. That information will be coming soon. So if you all need anything else, any questions, or if you've heard me at all, thanks for having me. I appreciate you very much.
Thank you, Casey.
All right, so won't be a whole lot of back and forth on this one just to keep it clean. I think that's, given the circumstance, we'll just take our lumps and then keep rolling on. But if you could communicate with Casey, we appreciate her, and we apologize for the technical difficulty. Yeah. All right. Did y'all have anything that you'd like me to carry to her after the fact? No? Okay. And then we'll do conference updates at the end. So those of you that were at the Tennessee Engineers Conference, and keep in mind too that although we're, even though we're having to overcome and adapt, this recording here will be available for review after the fact. So you won't get that instant gratification that we normally get, with a live meeting, but nonetheless, we're going to make it work. So you guys traveled too far and too long for us not to, to make lemonade out of this. So, all right. So, I think we're ready then for Ashley Cates. Is that all right? Or Alton, did you have something to say? Okay. Miss Cates?
Good morning, everyone.
Ashley, let me say for the record, we're glad you're here.
Apologies. Do I need to restate my name? No. Okay. So it's great to see everyone today. Just have a few little updates. Won't take a lot of your time. We wrapped up our conference on architecture. We were in Memphis at the Hyatt Centric, which is a great location right off of Beale Street. And we had over about 300 attendees there for about 3 days of continuing education, where you can get all your 12 HSW credits if you attend. And then we also recognize our newly licensed architects, and I want to thank the staff we always ask them to send us a list of the newly licensed architects, the ones that received their first professional license in Tennessee, and we like to recognize them, and staff is always great of pulling that information for us, so we appreciate that. As we roll into the conference for next year, we're going to be in Knoxville. August 7th through the 9th, and you all are more than welcome to come. Committees are getting ready to be pulled together, and we'll start that planning shortly. Our next event is the leadership retreat for the new board, current board members, and the ones coming into the board, and that will be in November. We'll kick off and talk about the various goals for the next year, which will also include any legislative initiatives. We always want to highlight the fact that we support the historic development grant program that the administration and the governor implemented a couple of years ago. That has been at $10 million. It provides grants to specific buildings that are in need of historic preservation that drives drives the economy in certain locations. And so they also highlight that in rural areas. So that's been a super great program. We hope that continues. And then we also like to educate the legislators, administration, but more the legislators, on the importance of the design and construction industry as it relates to the economy, and how you all are kind of like the top of where the economy kicks off, and then as you develop the construction and you see the cranes, you all are the beginning factor of that, and make sure that we keep that moving, and they support the capital outlay and looking at those types of buildings that we can continue to drive investment in our built environment in the state. Let's see. Casey mentioned risk strategies. And then lastly, the staff, because we are a 3-tiered organization, we have local staff, the local level in each one of our larger urban areas. Then there's the state level, and then there's AAA National. We go across the state with the president. Current president is Valentina Cochran. She is out of Memphis. So Valentina and I have been going across the state, giving an update to our membership on the various issues and initiatives that's happening at the state level. So we're excited about that. We've had one in Chattanooga. We just wrapped up one in Memphis, and we will be in Middle Tennessee November 8th, and in East Tennessee on November 16th. You are more than welcome to come join us. It's a member meetup. It used to be called Say of the State. We thought that kind of sounded boring, so we're going to try something different for our younger professionals to join us. So that is it. Other than I would like to just, I believe she wants to say anything, but I want to introduce Keisha Forrester. She is the new NCARB licensing advisor. And so what we do is we partner with AIA, and AIA works with NCARB, and each state has a representative that if we have members that have questions about pursuing their licensure, that have questions about, what do we need to do, then I can direct those questions to Keisha, and she can help. And then if we need to reach out to staff and to Glenn, we can do that. But I think it's a great mentoring opportunity, and I just invited her to come today so you all could meet her and have a face with a name. and we appreciate her time and involvement too within the profession. So other than that, if you have any questions, just let me know.
Thanks, Ashley. Appreciate you, and welcome aboard too. It's nice to have you with us. Okay, Nathan Ridley, if you want to see if he's on there.
Nathan Ridley.
And you might want to chat on. Okay, we don't have Mr. Ridley here then. So then I think we're ready for, I think Hannah and Claudia as well. Yeah, so they're going to get our.
All right, I'm actually going to let Connie start with ASID, and then I will take over for IIDA for Claudia.
Can you hear me?
Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
That's not on our end.
Okay.
Not my job, man.
Hello?
Hello? Hello? Hello? Hello? Hello? Hello?
Yeah, tell her because of her feedback, we're going to have to move on to the next one. Well,
Okay, can you hear me now? Thank you. Okay, so I'm Hannah Durham with ASID. I'm also going to be speaking on behalf of IDA for Claudia, who had to jump off here. I'm the current president-elect for ASID, and so I'll kind of jump into that quick overview, IDA, and a little bit of joint, just very briefly. So our annual state conference for ASID was held on September 28th and went through the 29th as well. We had our Design Awards Gala that evening, and it was a sold-out event, so very successful for us. And we honored our past presidents, our newest ASID fellow, which is Susan Ballard. So Tennessee now has 2 fellows in a row, which is incredible for the state. And then we also honored our annual industry partner sponsors there as well. The next day we had a CEU, which was very well attended, with a vendor show that was open to all industry partners. We had a keynote speaker, and our chapter awards were held there on that Friday, the 29th. We also had a couple of our members speak to UT Knoxville on professional organizations, advocacy, and that went very well. So we'll continue to keep that updated with every school in the state and continue to update you on that. Our 2023 to 24 board was inducted on October 1st with new members rolling into president, president-elect, communications, finance, national district chair, and student rep to the board. And this is the first year every position has been filled in every city district in a few years. So really good things happening for ASID this year. Our calendar year has been set for all meetings and events. And our annual strategic planning meeting was held in August, and so we have a full year plan. So just keep updated through our social medias, our websites, at @ASIDTN for any of those, and we'll continue to update on joint events also with IDA and AIA. So ASID Nationals also announced recently a new all-inclusive membership program with new levels such as full firm, where one single interior design or architecture firm can become a member with all employees under that umbrella. So that gives a lot more flexibility to overall memberships there. They also announced a +1 campaign where all members are encouraged to bring a non-member guest whether in the industry or not, to an ASID meeting or event. And this is to hopefully create more awareness about the profession as a whole and open it up to the public as well. So then moving into IDA, they also had their biannual Threads Gala event held on September 14th. And this is their off year, so Design Awards will be the next year. So this is their every other year. And product reps are partnering with design firms across the state to create little works of art this year with their commercial materials turned fashion show on the runway. So very successful. Again, there's probably between 300 and 400 people there every year, possibly more. And each model did incredibly and represented all those products beautifully. A silent auction was also held there during the event, and proceeds went to Habitat for Humanity of Tennessee. October is also a very busy month for them. We had 3 events just for the month of October for the members statewide. So between Zero Landfill, which is happening October tomorrow, the 6th through the 7th. This is an opportunity for the design community to clean out their material libraries, and Friday is the donation day, and Saturday is open to the public to come and peruse. We always have a great turnout from teachers, DIYers, crafters. It's a great way to kind of get a part of the community, and of course we love to keep samples out of the landfill. So that's been a long-standing event between all professional organizations that we love to volunteer at as well. October social events coming up at Pins, which is a Pins Mechanical Bowling Night. So that's happening on Wednesday, the evening of October 18th. And then also on October 24th is the annual NoxCon, which is a post-NeoCon event, trade show with CEUs. So that is always a very successful event as well coming up. And then just lastly, just keep in mind, jointly for ASD and IDA, this is exam month for the NCIDQ. So just keep all of us that are sitting for the exam, whether it be one or all, keep us in your thoughts and prayers. And we'll update hopefully accordingly after we get done with all this. So we do have a number of members sitting for all 3 exams this month, some starting this Saturday. And so we'll hopefully update you with all potential licensed designers here shortly. And that is all I have on behalf of Interior Design.
Thank her for us too. All right. Well, that was a good update. They never disappoint. You know what I mean? They cover the gamut in pretty short order. You know, and I mean they do a good job. And so we appreciate Hannah and Claudia and Nathan and Ashley and of course Casey. You know, a permanent fixture around here as well. So appreciate our professional society reports. We are ready for grant presentations. What we're going to do is Heidi's got a roster, and she's just going to invite each professor as we go down the list, and then give them an opportunity to speak. And then, and if you have any questions afterwards, then she can type that in the box. But I think we've got enough time to hear from each of them. So, Heidi, if you would.
Christian Brother Engineering. ETSU Interior Design.
Thanks for the opportunity, as always, each year, to see everyone again, and for the board for the generosity to the grants. Helps us to do lots of things. Being successful through another CETA accreditation this spring that went really well. We've reinstated and started our Studio Rome program again, doing lots of different things to help people learn about design from all kinds of cultural aspects through that. Our enrollment's up again for the 10th straight year. We're up to about 115 students now. And so all the effort that the state goes through is really helping our profession become more mature each year.
Any questions? Just so you know, too, each of those proposals are on that iPad, and we're falling in some sequential order. It looks like, so you'll be able to. It should be pretty self-explanatory. So the bulk of their proposal, their presentation would be the proposal itself. So unless there's any follow-up questions, of course, you guys have that also in your the committees. The grants committee has the zip folder, but after the fact too, I can send you information, and until we, once we make the decision on the awards, those go out, but that conversation is ongoing. If you need any clarity on any of the reports that you see, even after the fact, just you can forward those my way. But is there any initial thoughts to ETSU's interior design architecture program that you would like for us to drop in the chat box there from Dean Isham? Okay, I think we're for next.
ETSU Engineering Tech.
Hello everyone, my name is Mohammad Moinuddin. I'm a professor at East Tennessee State University, and I'm also the coordinator for the ETSU Tennessee Tech Joint Engineering Program. Let me share my screen. So, computer screen. Okay. So I want to thank the board for last year. Support. Really, last year we could do 5 different projects based on the grant funding we got, starting from the FE exam review, a summer camp, and also some equipment for a new class for the engineering program. So I really thank both for the support. This year proposal is based on last year success for our joint engineering program. FE exam is a graduation requirement. So this year also we are requesting fund to support the FE exam, so we can make it cost-free for the student and remove the cost barrier for students to easily take the exam. So prep material and fee support. The second is student engagement and professional development. Currently, we have 4 seniors. They're doing a design project with A.O. Smith, which is a local company. They make a water heater. We are planning, they're going to put together a work in progress paper to attend ASWE conference in 2024, requesting travel scholarship so they can go present and see what the peer are doing. They also get opportunity to engage with the practitioner, the faculty, and also industry folks. That definitely is going to help if they pursue graduate school or industry. The last one is based on the last year. We have done a summer camp. It was hugely successful. We had 47 middle school and high school students. We did it over 4 days, and in the last week of June, we conducted a survey. Based on the survey, over 90% students said that they are going to seriously consider engineering. So that is really I'm great for the program. Requesting funding so we can do it again the next year. So that pretty much is my proposal. Does anybody have any question?
You guys have any follow-up for?
Thank you.
I have no question, just a comment that it appears that enrollment is trending upward, which is impressive, which I think is a very positive sign for what they're doing. It's great.
And one side note too, Dr. Uden, you guys probably, those of you that went to the Tennessee Engineers Conference, he received an award there as well. I remember during the award ceremony. So he's been doing a lot of great things with ETSU and really bringing them into the conversation. So that's exciting to see an up and coming school, doing what they're doing. And especially with the problems we've had with trending and enrollment. Just industry wide. It's not just Tennessee, but in the industry. They talked about that a little bit in NCWS, and we'll get in those conference updates later on. But so to see one school sort of going in the opposite direction, that's encouraging.
One other thing too, I want to commend them for having this recruitment and retention activity where they personalize it and try to encourage kids to either enter or stay in engineering. I like the fact that they're doing that, because I think only a third of the kids that are the individuals that start in engineering curriculum make it through to the end. So I applaud them for doing that.
It's in there. It sounds great, doesn't it? Until you start digging into that work and you realize it's a serious business. All right, good deal. I think we're ready for the next one then.
Lipscomb in there.
This would be Dr. Elrod if he's available.
Dr. Elrod.
And just on a side note too, we had, if you remember last presentation, we had we had a lot of graduate assistants and interns and staffers sort of filling in. It's a busy season, so I just appreciate all of our deans that are able to make it themselves, and those that can't, the proposal has to speak for themselves, and unfortunately, but nonetheless, these are good proposals, so we're able to make the type of determinations we need to make. So nonetheless, we're not necessarily hamstring, but this is an opportunity to let them, to kind of give us additional comments if they like, but nonetheless, we're not dependent upon that either. So without further ado, thank you.
MTSU. Ken Curry.
No, thank you, Heidi. Heidi's really hanging in there. I tell you what, I wouldn't want her job right now. No, I don't.
Curry, are you on? Ken Curry, you are allowed to speak if you're ready.
I am ready. I'm sorry. We were doing run through for our ABET visit, so I apologize. So the engineering and engineering technology proposal for MTSU, basically we included money to actually fund student PE exam. We currently reimburse students who pass the exam, and as a result, the students that take the exam are pretty few. It's just it's going to be just the few that are pretty confident that they're going to an FE exam course for all of our students, and this will allow students to actually feel like if they are reimbursed for the actual cost, then they will be less likely to be hesitant to take it. And we've got some criteria that we are using for determining who is going to get those 10 scholarships for the taking the exam. We've also got some requests for some specialized 3D printing to set up both carbon fiber placement as well as metal filament 3D printing. So that requires just a little extra supplies for those particular ones. And then we've also got some equipment. We've got a new building coming online in summer of 2025, and we're in the process of redoing most of the equipment on our material science lab. And so one of the things that we've currently got is a rather large 100 kilonewton tensile testing equipment. And what we're trying to do is we're basically trying to update that to handle a smaller tabletop unit so that we can have it in our new lab. And that's quite costly as well. So there's one other, I think we are also requesting funds for the travel to the National Robotics Competition in Marion, Ohio in April, where our students have performed admirably. They've actually come back with 2 third places and a first place in several of the robotic competitions. It's sponsored by SME. And so the students spend all year preparing for that particular competition. So part of what we're asking is for some additional travel funds to help support that trip. So. Any questions?
Do we dare?
I'll mute.
Yeah. And I'll follow up with all these deans as well after the fact too, and just see if there's anything else they'd like to add or if any way we can assist them. But nonetheless. This is one time I think we're going to make it to lunch, I think, on time. Yeah, you know what? I might have somebody please knock on wood. Yeah. Oh.
Tennessee Tech engineer.
Well, and we can also see them if they're logged on or not. So, I mean, that helps. That's not, if they're not monitoring chat, but we see, in this case, Kumar Yelamarthi, if he's not in the, if he's not in the chat, then that kind of explains that too.
Yes, I am here. I appreciate the opportunity on behalf of University of Memphis Architecture to talk with you all and tell you what we have proposed and some of our successes. We are asking for funds to continue our lecture series that's been extremely successful with virtually 100% of our student body turning out for both the in-person and the Zoom lectures that we've had since we started this, primarily with funds from you all. And we have the opportunity to expand this a little bit more with some additional partnerships with some of our local professional organizations. And we look forward to that because it also provides an opportunity for networking for our students. And that's been very valuable for them to meet some of the local practitioners and even in some cases result in internships. We've had several that actually have gotten internships as a result of the face-to-face contacts when the people are here on campus or here in Memphis. Some of the things that we are also asking for is a continuation to pay the AIS dues for our graduate students. And this is very important also because it gives them an opportunity to be invited to AI in Memphis activities. Oftentimes there's not a fee associated with that, or it is a reduced fee. And this again helps significantly with not only being part of the local professional community, but also the possibility of summer internships as well as employment post-graduation. So this has been somewhat difficult to get everybody engaged with it, but we've entered into an agreement now with it's in place with AIS National, and they now bill the department. We tell them the names of the students and the amount, and then they bill us, and we work through that way rather than working through the individual students, because we found that in the past, sometimes they get sidetracked and they forget to join, and then they miss out on the opportunities. The other thing that we're asking for funds again would be the reimbursement for what we pay the initial fee to set up the NCARB account to start AXP. And we are trying to encourage more and more of our graduate students to do that so they can start to accrue hours. We're also working with undergrad students through our architect licensing advisor to set up their AXP files if they are indeed working in a firm or having an internship. So we are asking for the $100 per student to go ahead and set that up again. So again, we really appreciate the funding that we've received over the past years. It's been incredibly beneficial, and we hope to continue to receive funding so we can continue these operations and provide the special benefits to our students. Thank you.
And on the payroll.
Russell Deaton. Okay. Can you hear me now? Yes? Okay. I had to log in and log out. I'm sorry. I'll be quick. Okay. Thank you again. I echo what Michael said. I thought a lot about what I could show you. And so basically our program is asked for experiential learning and experiences and equipment. And why experiential learning is our entire program mission is based on experiential learning. Every class in the curriculum for us is either hands-on or a course of that sort. Basically, in the past, and for this proposal, we do a lot of layering of student research, the virtual exchanges, the student conferences, the competitions, and then they're all layered together. And then I have asked for equipment. And I mentioned, and you funded ProGlobe last year. It's also a continuation this year, plus other competitions the students are attending. And then I'm showing you images basically of what some of the things you've helped to fund. The other thing that does is the collaborations is it enables us to get MOUs with the universities, and the students are able to do other classes with them, not just architectural, but engineering as well. Here's one that we're planning on doing. We're doing with Dismas House and Doors of Hope in Nashville for a project, and the equipment and the supplies help to fund that project and activity for women who have just recently left incarceration. This also, the funding will help with our simulation collaborations with health and human performance, engineering, nursing, and interior design. And I've asked for equipment, and it seems like such a small thing, but when you have hundreds of people participating and you have one or two gloves, it's just helpful to have more of the devices. Also just wood, resins, makerspace, that kind of thing. This is a continuation of last year and this year too. The grant that we got from German Academic Exchange, DAD, and now Erasmus Plus. This is images of what you helped to fund. We hope to continue it this year, and it may not be in Germany, but Portugal. But thank you again. This is a slide of basically what they do. And I will say this, it's all about relationships. Some of these students have never been out of the state on a plane, much less at a conference. And so I can't thank you enough for the funding, because it doesn't happen without these. We try our best from internal and external, but your funding does make a difference, because it makes one or two more students to get to go to these conferences or competition or experience these things. And I tell the students every day, the sticks and bricks are easy. It's the relationships that are hard, and these collaborations, and what you help us do is achieve these collaborations and these activities for the students. And that's all I have. Thank you. And I'll send the slides.
Thanks. Yeah, we're just going to ask for them to, and that's what I talked to Heidi about. So when I can forward you the slides after the fact, and along with the zip file, and you could take a look at that. So.
Catherine Kendall? I'm here. Can everybody hear me? I just wanted to thank you for your continued support of interior design at UTC. Our program is continuing to grow. We're getting more and more diverse in our student body within the program, as even a lot of first-generation college students. So our continued focus tends to be diversity, equity, inclusion, how we can continue to keep hold of these students in a major that tends to be, can be quite expensive for them. So based on this, we continue to focus on TBA proposals that work towards one, application and registration of the NCIDQ IDFX, and getting people through at least the first section, especially we're talking about seniors, of course. And then reimbursement for any of the seniors that pass either the LEAD or the WELL exam, because this continues to support the quality of students and professionals that we're putting out into the area. And then the last thing, we also want to include them on the front end by providing general first-year supplies to incoming freshmen within the major. Continue to do that because that's a big expense right off the bat when they first start their college experience, and we want them to be able to continue within the program. So that still remains our main focus. If anybody has any questions, I'll be glad to answer any questions. Thank you.
UTC Interior Design.
This is Catherine Kendall again. That was UTC Interior Design.
UTK Fire Protection Design.
Hello, I'm Jeff Wilkinson, and Dean Young, unfortunately, had a conflict and couldn't be here today, so he asked me to just briefly address the board and just basically express how thankful we are for all the funding that we received over the years. The college has really been growing. We're up to over 650 students now, architecture, interior, and landscape architecture, and so your funding is really, really vital to what we do every year. Again, this year, as in the past few years, we've kind of split about 60% operations and 40% equipment. The operations, one of the most important things that you guys have funded for us there is consumables at the Fab Lab. This allows us to subsidize many things. We have a big bank of 3D printers, and that's the most bang for the buck that we get out of that. It allows our students to basically print up to a certain quantity at no cost. And we've seen as a result of that over the last few years, our 3D printer usage has gone way, way up since there's not the barrier of having to paper print. As far as equipment, the main thing we've done for that over the last few years is you guys have been funding for us expanding our pool of loaner laptops. This has really been helpful in the last 2 or 3 years in particular, because between supply chain issues with financial aid often that cause students when they're typically, or not typically, but sometimes unfortunately here for up to a few weeks or even a couple of months before they get their financial aid squared away. So they're just delays in having a laptop on the first day. And we found that we've needed up to 40, 50 loaners in fall semesters in particular. So in conclusion, I'd just like to thank you again. Your funding has been very, very helpful to us through the years. And once again, Dean Young regrets that he couldn't be here. And thank you very much.
UTK Engineering.
Hi, my name is Ann Skutnik. I'll be speaking on behalf of Associate Dean Michael Dankwa, who has a conflict right now. So again, echoing everybody else, we'd love to thank you for all the support you've given us over the years. Our enrollment has increased 36% in the last 5 to 10 years. And so we are once again requesting funding for the FE exam, funding for supplies for our engineering fundamentals program, and then funding to retrofit an old classroom space into a tutoring center. So again, we cover the FE exam fees for our student, for about 47 of our students. We've requested this in the past, so this is something we're continuing because it's very successful. We're also requesting funding for dividers and furniture so that we can retrofit a old classroom into a tutoring space for students who take higher level engineering courses and who might need support. And then we are hoping to expand our lab, our engineering fundamentals first year physics program, to multiple labs. We can have 6 simultaneous sections. And so we're requesting funding for lots of different lab supplies to teach a variety of different physics concepts like force, acceleration, velocity, position, so balances, metal tracks for a smart car, sensors, things like that. So again, thank you so much for your support. We really appreciate it.
UT Martin Engineering.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, I tried to share. I don't know if it's showing or not. Let me just run through. Can you see the slides?
No, send them later, please.
Okay. Let me just run through it. First of all, thank you so much for the funding. Really helps our program. Our program is growing. We're in a new building. Excited about that. I had some pictures to show the new building, and hate that we can't do that. Last year, we received money for some new computer hardware and senior design projects. This year, we're asking for funds for some surveying equipment that will support our new construction management program and the civil engineering senior design projects, and also FE support. This past year in October, we received our ABET accreditation for the Bachelor of Science in Engineering and the Bachelor of Science Mechanical Engineering programs, and so we're really excited about that. We really are, again, excited to be in the new building. And it really has made a difference in our program here. So thank you so much.
Vanderbilt Engineering.
Hello, hi, my name is Cynthia Pascal. I'm a Senior Associate Dean for Undergraduate Education in the School of Engineering. Appreciate so much this opportunity to speak with you today. As other speakers have said, we're really grateful for past support we received from the board. It really has made a tremendous difference. Our funds are so tied up in financial aid, where over 60% of our students receive some type of aid. And so the money you provide really helps make those special experiences that get students excited about engineering and help them stay in the workforce. And really our program is about workforce development. The vast majority of our students will go into the workforce as their first destination out of graduating, out of their degree program. So our request for this year is first and foremost, as always, funds to support the Fundamentals of Engineering exam. That's, of course, been very, very helpful and meaningful. We additionally ask for funds to support, as always, our early engineering experiences, so our Introduction to Engineering course that all students take in their very first semester. We also are asking for a small amount of funds for some specific Maker Night supplies for our digital fabrication minor. So those programs are early exposures to students to get them jazzed and excited. We are asking for funding for our student-driven manufacturing, including especially a fixturing table and the associated clamps and other types of tools. And then also tools for our student design studios. We are, again, asking for funds to help students travel to regional experiences that help them connect with engineering in our larger Southeast region. This has been extremely successful. We had a particularly good trip that took students from Nashville to Memphis to see what is really an impressive nexus of biomedical implant device industry with Medtronic, Stryker, and Smith & Nephew, which was very exciting to many different types of engineers. We also this year are hoping that, should you fund us, that we would use the funds to send some students to the Institute of Electrical and Electronic Engineering, Southeast Conference for the conference, for meeting other engineers, and also to participate in a hardware and robotics competition. We are asking for funds to take some of our students to go visit the a solar farm in Bedford County, and local manufacturing facilities, again to Memphis for that nexus of biomedical device and implant companies, and several different civil engineering types of sites. With all the construction here in Middle Tennessee, there is so much to see and observe. So we're asking for funds for that. Our last request from this year's proposal is somewhat different, and so it is about making our learning spaces more accessible and modern, and especially the accessibility part. So we are asking for funds to purchase some additional adjustable height workbenches to use in a mechanical engineering senior design lab, and also some flip top tables for that same area that can be easily moved out of the way if there are students needing more room for mobility. In addition to then some supplies for that space. We believe that as we continue to need to develop an expanded workforce in engineering, that we need to think more broadly. And while we've been able to increase our gender diversity, our undergraduate population in the School of Engineering at Vanderbilt is 45% women, which is pretty amazing, and 21% underrepresented minorities. And we want to make our spaces welcome then also to persons with disabilities. So we really feel like this is important. An additional way we would like to make one of our teaching spaces more accessible is to, in one of our electrical and computer engineering labs, to mount a large monitor and then set up the faculty member with wireless microphone and switching video and audio switching systems, and then a subscription for an automated captioning service, so that persons with hearing disabilities would be able to also see captioning for what the person is saying. Now, again, this is something different. We haven't put this kind of thing in our proposal before. I did have to cut way back on my faculty colleagues' budget requests in the previous categories of those early engineering experiences, student-driven manufacturing, and local travel in order to put this in the proposal. If for some reason you all don't want to fund this accessibility proposal, we would ask for the opportunity to then put back into our proposal some of the other categories that we had to cut back on. Finally, in addition to the financial support, again, we are so very grateful. It really, really makes a difference. We are grateful that board member Alton Heathcote will be coming to speak with our Bachelor of Engineering seniors in November regarding licensure. So thank you very, very much.
Can you hear me now? All right, awesome. Let me share my screen. Okay, let me start the slideshow. All right, so what we are requesting is the support for the Solar Decathlon, the competition sponsored by the U.S. Department of Energy. The UTC team participated in this competition for the past couple of years, and this is our third year. So for those who are not familiar with the Solar Decathlon, this is a kind of college competition for the students from all different countries, including the U.S. And then they are supposed to build and or design energy efficient house. And those who are doing a good job in blending architecture and engineering excellence with some innovative solutions, and they are selected as a winner. And it is the competition look at 10 different contest areas, and they include architecture, engineering, envelope, efficiency, grid interactivity, life cycle, health, market, and community, and also presentation is also one of the 10 contest area, and it includes quite broad spectrum of engineering field and also architecture. So we, the team of the interior architecture and design students and construction management, and also the wide variety of engineering students are participating in this team. And this is a kind of a short timeline. We are in the process of team registration in October, and then we have an option to provide some project summary in December, and then our initial semi-final submission will be in February next year, and then the final competition will be in April. And then what we request is a travel support for the team and some others. Our team has been quite multidisciplinary, and students are coming from construction management, interior architecture and design, and also chemical, civil, electrical engineering, and computer science. And the faculty, we have 3 faculty advisors, 2 from the College of Engineering and Computer Science, and 1 from the interior architecture and design. And we started this team in 2021. The first year, we made a top 10 in the world in the design challenge for the new housing division. And the last year, we also made a top 10 in the attached housing division. And we are in the process of trying the third year, and hopefully we're going to do it better. So with the support, we can attract more participation from many different fields. So the support we need include the travel support for the final competition, and also local travel for project site and local partners. And also we want to invite speakers for those who participate in this team, and also we need some building supplies. So they are basically what we request for this team activities. So that's pretty much it. Thank you.
That's pretty clever. I didn't even think about that with the competitions. It's sort of like, I mean, they're recruiting is what they're doing. It's outreach. So that's very, very interesting. And that thought hadn't occurred to me. You know, it's when you see the SEC play, Alabama or whoever, and that's recruiting, that's exposure. So that's interesting. All right. There was 3 slide presentations, so I'll reach out to those folks and then get those to you if you'd like to look at those after the fact. But I think what we're going to do, since because we didn't have the back and forth with the comments, we got done early, so it's a really opportunity for us to power through the director's report, so that way when we get back from lunch, we can get you on the road sooner than later. How about that? Yep. So we're gonna move on with the next item of our agenda, since we're past those grant presentations, is the application review. So, and then we'll do the director's report, hopefully, and then maybe even we'll get as far as we can. How about that? And then
thing works. Could you make it colder in here? Is that possible?
We'll try. I don't know if it's possible.
There's a little snow coming down.
Right. Yeah.
You need to swap sides with the engineers.
Is it warm over
It's
there?
warm over here.
Oh, okay.
You bunch of crybabies.
Sorry.
Did you say hot air? I think you said hot air. I think it's all that hot air, right? That's it. All right, we got a couple of volleys across the aisle then, and I'll try to keep track of score, and I'll let you know how it all ends. All right, see, Melanie, look what you're in for. I don't know how you keep order of this. All right, so we're next on the agenda then is application review. If you could go to that document, and then let me set that one up for you. Okay, number 3, it's app review Dawson, and then let me just give you the summary on that of exactly what we're looking at. We're looking at Fresh Start Act factors. Let me read those to you. Right. So we're looking at 6276-104B, Part 4A through D. I'm going to just go over that real quick. If anytime it's entitled Denial of License for Prior Criminal Prosecution. And so here are the factors that we'd have to consider if we're going to deny an application. I'm not saying that's what we should do in this case, but if that's where we went, then for any criminal prosecution, here's the factor. So if nothing else, it's a good opportunity for us to go over that and to look at that. So that citation is as this. It says, in considering whether to deny an application for a license, certificate, or registration to an applicant pursuant to subdivision B1, or whether to refuse to renew a license, certificate, or registration on the basis of a criminal conviction, because that's what we're talking about here. This person would be otherwise qualified. We're just looking at their conviction. We're not looking at their application per se or their qualifications. We're looking at their conviction. The licensing authority, this board, must consider the following: the relationship between the nature of the crime and the purpose of regulating the occupation, profession, business, or trade. The relationship between the crime and the ability, capacity, and fitness required to perform the duties and discharge the responsibilities of the occupation, profession, business, or trade. Any evidence of rehabilitation or treatment undertaken by the individual that might mitigate against the relationship of crime to the occupation, business, profession, business, or trade. And any applicable federal laws regarding an individual's participation in the occupation, profession, business, or trade. The constant you saw there was occupation, profession, business, or trade. Is it related? And is there any, you're looking at any mitigating factors, but it has to be tied to their fitness, their ability to enter or to be a part of this profession and into this industry. So that's the criteria, that's the consideration. And then I will just one mitigating, and I do think it's an important mitigating circumstance, since we're required to look at mitigation. It says any evidence of rehabilitation or treatment undertaken that might mitigate the relationship of the crime. Where the charge took place in Alabama, he currently, after the fact, holds an active license in Alabama, Georgia, and Mississippi. So this is an active licensee after the fact for Alabama.
Question. I don't have a question. I have a comment. Please. I've known this individual for over 30 years, and I was angry when he was prosecuted after he gave full disclosure of everything. I'm not going to talk about the specific case, but it was a terrible process and unfair to Mr. Dawson. But he never complained the entire time. He actually went out into the professional societies and gave presentations about what particularly happened to him, but not to complain about it, but to help offer instruction and guidance to other engineers so that they didn't make the same mistake. He's practiced with ethics and integrity for as long as I've known him. You can see he's the number of professional societies that he's actually spoken to, but he's also on the board of directors for his church, and I know his family. He's an outstanding representative of this profession, and I would strongly support his approval for licensure in the state of Tennessee. In fact, I encouraged him to pursue this. Thank you. Thank you.
And that, again, and thank you for providing Part C, evidence of rehabilitation or treatment undertaken. In a circumstance like that, in this case, since Mr. Heathcote is an associate engineer, he wouldn't be voting. But if you were to have to vote in the matter, you would have to recuse yourself if you were to become a witness. But that goes without saying. Everyone already knows that. But since we're talking about that, whoever might be watching, I want them to know that as well. So thank you. And this is a good exercise for us to go through anyway, because we may have another one in the future, like this. So
we actually have. We've had one. There is a precedent for this. It was several years ago where the same thing happened to an engineer practicing in Memphis. It was in this state and registered in this state, and this individual went through almost exactly the same process, appealed to have his license reinstated, and it was reinstated.
Comments or questions?
Yes, I have a comment. And the fact that the Alabama board evaluated his situation and decided to grant him a license, that's something we need to consider. Plus, if he served time, that's, he paid his debt to society. If it is fair, fair or unfair, regardless, he already served time. I've got one question. Maybe it's to Alton, but just having read his letter, somehow or other, the punishment doesn't seem to fit the crime. Am I reading that wrong? I mean,
You're not reading it wrong. In fact, before the prosecution occurred, the prosecutors agreed to grant him immunity. He gave full disclosure on everything, and there was no finding of fault. But they, 4 months after that, elected to pursue prosecution anyway. And again, I don't want to elaborate on all the facts of the case, but if I shared those with you, you would be as frustrated about that part of the history of what happened to him as I have been.
Other comments?
No, that was all. That's all we had to present. What you see before here, the witness testimony, and the fact that he's licensed in 3 other states, one of which he, was prosecuted in, and now has been restored there. So that's the evidence. That's the material before us.
I will ask one question. Are you referring to a few years ago we had an architect that conditions that prosecuted?
Actually, this was an engineer with a Memphis firm. They've been, I believe that, I may be wrong about this. I thought he was civil, but I could be wrong. He was mechanical. Okay, yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah.
But it's similar.
Yes, very similar.
Then we had another one very similar to this, architect.
I do recall that too.
I'm just
so there is.
Amber.
Yeah, I just wanted to point out that there is precedent for that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just kind of agree with Dr. Elsie that since Alabama, where he committed when it happened, if they've granted it, I feel comfortable to also make a motion to approve reinstatement.
We have a motion on the floor.
I will second that.
Got a second?
Motion and a second. For additional discussions in regard to this? We have a motion and a second. All in favor of that signify by aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
We're ready then for, looks like director's report, so I'm on. All right. The first thing we'll hit is the budget report, and that's nothing to vote on. That's just a report for your information only. Not a whole lot to report since our last meeting. At the last meeting, we covered financial reporting for this fiscal year through May. Today, all we have is June and then the closeout of the year. So we're only looking at 1 month and then the closeout. So closeout is just that. It's a reconciliation for the year. It's, those receipts come in after the fiscal year. It doesn't fit nice and tidy, and so you have to reconcile that in that closeout that following month. And so that's what you're seeing there before you. That's why you're in a deficit. Every closeout's going to be a deficit because you're paying the bills. That kind of floated in after our fiscal year. I didn't see anything else that just jumped out at me that seemed irregular from year end over year end. So we'll have a little bit more next meeting in December, because by then we'll have a couple more months probably from the new fiscal year and maybe even the reserves. If not, we'll cover that the first of the year and get into the reserves. But right now, that's all we have.
Yes, sir. Just one quick thing, Glenn. You gave me assurance that in the budget that we've got for this year, we did program in the $450,000 for grants to higher education that the board approved last time. That's not an assurance that it gets funded. It's just, I want to make sure it's in this budget and as proposed.
Yeah, 450, the process to have that relayed and have that budgeted and allocated, that has been initiated. And so, but there is no approvals for that yet. Like everything, it has its own pipeline, its own process. And so, but all the decision makers that would be a party to that and that would have to make that decision, they've been notified. And so, and the difference between appropriations bill as opposed to, other items is that it's more administrative process because it's not like rulemaking hearing or some of the other. You still have it has its own process, but that's really sort of a budget, administration, executive leadership decision as to whether or not they'll approve it. But the thing is, when one thing that I've been told, and I was telling Alton this when he asked me before, when you open up a chapter, people don't just they're not relegated to the section you want to change. Once you open up that chapter, they can change whatever they want, and you can take things up to the hill, and it comes out entirely different than what you anticipated. So sometimes if you're just looking for like a minor grammatical edit, but it's a substantial sort of chapter, then you may not want to run the risk of opening that up because then it could be gutted. So the grants they're not required, they're not in statute, but they're part of the appropriation. So and we as a statute, once the decision's made, they can either there's a process to file an increase or a decrease. They can defund it as well in the appropriations bill. They can just strike it. So it's not automatic just because we do that every single year. Since 2001 is when we've been doing that, so for a while. But so I've indicated that was the board's interest to do that, and so and I've reiterated that at this point. And now we're just looking at a decision to be made in that regard from those that would be required to bear the burden of that. And then I'll let the board know because we'll be approaching some deadlines for the appropriations bill. And then but right now we're sitting at 400, so there's been no decrease, but we're sitting at 400, but there hasn't been an increase either. But I'll let you know if that happens.
Just for clarification, we do have to submit a budget to them, correct?
No, it's the budget there. There's sort of a proposed budget, and we can talk about that in the first of the year. And it's basically past expenses and then projected future expenses, which would include that 450. But just because it's in our budget doesn't mean it gets funded. So that's in two entirely different things. Proposed budget saying this is where we think we're going and this is what we'd like to see, but then whether or not it's approved and then that's actually funded, that's an entirely different animal. So right now, the indication's been made and budgeted for that, but whether or not it gets approved for that allocation.
It will be approved in this legislative. Well, it will be dealt with in this upcoming legislative session.
Yes, sir. That's right.
Okay. And when will we know that? June, May?
No, I'd say like probably the first quarter of the year, the calendar year, because by then you're button because they're gonna those bills come down in like May or June, but they have the data and has to go through its own approval process. If we just say our guys on our side say yep, that's what we're gonna do, then it has to go through that approval process over there too before it actually makes itself into the appropriations bill. And then all the government ops and the committees, they get a shot at it too. They may not agree, and so it's not just you can't just sort of. It's not like going to accounts payable on your ledger and just writing the check. It's so. But we'll know it within the first quarter because if by then we'll be approaching those deadlines.
Okay, thank you, Glenn.
Yes, sir.
I think everybody can see the benefit this provides, and obviously all the universities greatly benefit from it and appreciate it, and it seems irresponsible of us to have surplus revenue and not obligate it towards something that perpetuates and benefits the societies that we represent.
Oh, then we would have to do something about that surplus, certainly, if it kept trending in that direction. So either way, we're dealing with it, right? It's either going to be spending it on this or other items. And again, we have some items that we were trending already. We were looking at decreased enrollment, not in all the schools. It looks like UTK is doing pretty good, and so is ETSU. But we're looking at that, the enrollments, And so if that continues to trend in that direction, a slow decline, then that's going to affect incoming revenues. And then we're also looking at a core expenditure upgrade that we just recently went through. And so that's a contract that's coming up this next year. We talked about that probably a couple meetings ago. So by the time we know where we're at on this, we'll also have some more of that information, and then we'll know what we're dealing with.
That brings up one other thing, and I hope this will be the last thing I say about this, but in the past, in October, we've been able to meet with the deans of the universities, and we're able to ask questions like, what are you doing for retention or increase enrollment? How are you out promoting this access to the profession, and what are you doing internally to keep young people in this plan and process? And we've gotten some really interesting feedback, but we've also given some other recommendations. And with all the deans together, there was a lot of intra-conversation where, like, UTC might have been doing something that was very innovative and creative that UTK or Tennessee Tech or Memphis or any of the other ones could capitalize on. And I think by not doing that anymore, it's hurt the process. And I would strongly encourage that we try to do that again in the future, because it was very beneficial not only for this board, but also for the schools that produce new incoming professionals that we will represent. Thank you.
And we've always approached this from like the three-legged stool. I would say it's we're promoting education, we're promoting professional registration, and we're promoting jobs for the state of Tennessee. And it's to the benefit of all these professions and the state of Tennessee that we continue. Oh well, yeah, that goes without saying, but this is important because it's always been part of the administration's education and jobs creation and professional registration, and I think it's a great thing. So I feel good about it continuing, but we'll see how it falls. So thank you.
All right. I think we're ready for the NCARB 2023 Regional Summit. The National Council of Architectural Registration Board's Regional Summit in Savannah, Georgia is from March 1st to the 2nd. So we just need to vote to approve the travel for our architects. I don't know. You guys might have ruined it with the engineers already. I don't know.
So moved. We have a motion by Mr. Wagster. Can we get a second?
We got a motion from Mr. Waxer. Is that right? So we need a second then.
I'll second.
We got a second from
Motion
Mr.
and a second.
Oh yeah, we got a second from Mr. Parker.
Fourth.
So we'll just say, well, for the record, we'll say Mr. Waxer as a motion and Mr. Parker for the second. And because I don't have instant replay to see what that photo finish looked like. So
I agree with you, sir. All right, we have a motion and a second for the approval for the travel for the architects. Any additional conversation or questions? All in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Ayes carry. Motion carries. Thank you.
Looks like we're ready for the conference updates then. I'd like to start with Dr. Ash. I'm just going to go in sequence of the events. We have the NCSS annual meeting that took place on August 15th to the 18th, and then the engineers conference luncheon roundtable in Franklin on September 19th, and then finally, but not least, Blair on September 20th to 22nd, the CLARB meeting. So we'll go in that order if that pleases the board. And Dr. Ash, did you have any comments that you'd like to make?
Yes, regarding the NCAA's annual conference, it was really good and informative, and I think I learned quite a bit about their business by attending that. And I can tell you one thing, they are not shy of spending money on attendees. It's by far the very first and probably the last conference that I see open buffet for, seafood. Yeah, I mean, it includes lobster, unlimited lobster.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Did you get that at Clark?
Yeah,
Come over to our side.
Rub it in. No, you guys stay over there. You guys stay over there.
Yeah, of course, it is Boston. The lobster was just running around like pets, in the park and stuff.
So, next year is going to be in Chicago, and everybody in the conference demanded the presence of lobster in Chicago next year. We voted on several motions by committees, and there are very few of them that I would like to bring to your attention. I think they were important. The first one was actually a motion by the Education Committee, motion 3, and they approved this motion of moving to a minimum of 15 PDHs per year, including 1 hour of ethics with no carryover. So that is what NCAAS approved in August. That does not say that we have to absolutely follow, but that's what they approved. That's what people think about. So I did a quick study on the states I'm registered in on 16, and 2 require 24 per 2 years. That's Tennessee and Utah. And there are 2 that do not require anything, Michigan, Connecticut. And the rest of them require minimum of 15 per year. 4 of them require 1 hour of ethics. Second important one here was regarding the practice of engineering. There was a motion to take out teaching design courses as a way of practicing engineering, and that was rejected. So everybody thought that if we deny our educators a way of licensure, then we do not expect them to talk about how important licensure is to their students. Third one here, which took quite a bit of debate, regarding electronic signature, and that motion was accepted. They basically require you to put your signature, either physical signature or electronic signature, and don't dedicate that to a junior professional in your office. You physically have to do it either by physically signing it or placing it electronically, but you cannot dedicate that. You can dedicate seating plans to a junior professional, but you cannot dedicate signing a letter or signing a proposal to somebody else in your office. The rest of them, I think they're going to be published by NCAAS, but those are the 3 I wanted to bring to your attention.
Ash, I've got one question about the seal that you were talking about. Did they discuss having, and I'm not going to call it an electronic seal, but a digitized seal with your signature digitized on it and repeating it? Did they discuss that?
The discussion was limited only to signature, not seal and signature, just signature.
Okay, so your signature had to be wet. I can use the word a wet signature.
Basically, bottom line, they want you to either to sign the letter or place your own electronic signature on the letter, but don't dedicate that to somebody else.
One thing I'd like to say too is I was really proud of Dr. Ash. He was really prepared. The first when in that book, when you get the motions, it can be kind of intimidating because you've seen it before. Some of you guys have been to these annual meetings. A lot of motions there, and he was ready to dig in right away. So I appreciate you taking that as serious as you did. And
it was just because it's first time. Probably next time I'm not going
to. I appreciate his honesty, don't you?
I've got they feed us well. So I don't know about Chicago. So
I've been to another annual meeting with them, and that's not always the case. So I doubt you're going to get that in Chicago. Any of you guys get too excited, but anyway, it was good. It was a good time. We covered a lot of ground. One thing I thought that was interesting too is, architects, you'll be pleased to know that your memorandum of understanding with the UK and NCARB. NCAAS is looking at that to do a mutual recognition agreement. They didn't want to say MOU because I guess they didn't want to just completely plagiarize or something. I don't know, but they're looking at that as well. So, and yes, sir.
There was one more interesting thing too, that there is obviously a mutual agreement that the U.S. and UK signed that will allow professional engineers in both countries to practice automatically in the other countries. So you can actually go practice in England if you are recognized as a professional engineer here. And they brought somebody from the embassy, and he started talking about the Boston Tea Party for some reason. Yeah, so that is, it's already signed, but the NCAA has to work in the details. The other important topic that took quite a bit of discussion in that conference also is NCAA wanted to create a foundation and move $7 million of their general fund to that foundation. And they're going to use it to support, scholarships based on what they said, but that was a very hot point of debate.
All right. Well, thank you, Dr. Ash. Appreciate that. Looks like the engineers conference luncheon. I was fortunate enough to be there on Monday, the 18th, but scheduling conflict, couldn't be there that following day for the luncheon. So, so fill me in. Was it lively, or did Alton tell us?
Well, Eddie, Jason, and Ash had to get the hook to pull me off the stage when we spoke. It was interesting. I felt bad for Casey. There's 680 people there, and it's in a huge, you saw the lunchroom, you know what it looked like. And when we opened the floor for questions, man, it didn't seem like nobody at the same table asked a question. She looked like a ping pong ball bouncing all over the place. But there were a lot of questions, a lot of interest about the new legislation, decoupling, the master's degree, the engineering technology degree. We did have a question about the legal. So what was the most frequent violation that we had? That was a pretty easy one for us. Obviously we were able to reply to that about people letting their license lapse, and then got onto them because they get notifications and everything else. So it was well attended, obviously, and we did have the opportunity to get nearly 700 people. I was, I don't guess, surprised about how many people didn't know about the new legislation. I think we do a good job of publishing that. I know Casey has done a good job of trying to get out into the public and at the various TSPE meetings across the state. But we did get a lot of questions about that, and then the PDH, the non-carryover stuff. That's a good point. We were able to communicate that to them, which not a lot of people also knew about that. So we'll probably, those of us that get to do continuing education reviews, we'll see a lot of red vector, last day red vector, internet type education opportunities. What else, guys? What am I leaving off?
I think Casey liked the sessions very much. She said she's going to try to give us more time. She have a longer session for us next year.
I appreciate that.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Yeah, and I know Casey's not on here now, but this video will be available later. But I just on the record want to thank her for her hospitality and allowing me to attend that and to witness and be a part of that process as well. So it just, and I'm thinking now too. I'm hoping to do a little bit more outreach, and so Blair and I have talked about that some on the side, and along with some of our institutions, our schools, and try to really dig into the industry a little bit more, so we can, because if the industry changes, we got to regulate it. So we just need to kind of be ahead of it.
Just quick, do the architects or interior designers or the landscape architects, do y'all do something like that every year too? It's hugely beneficial. And with that, again, I remember the first time I went, I think there was 150 people there, and now it's 700. And I think a lot of people go to get their PDHs, but Casey does an outstanding job of getting topical speakers specific to disciplines. I mean, it really is impressive and beneficial. Do y'all do something? Do your societies do something similar to that? Good.
Yeah, well, that was a good experience. So thank you for representing the board in that regard as well. And as far as broadcast and reach, we release. We'll do news releases through our public information office. We'll send a blast out in email, post it on our website and our social media. But as you know, I don't, folks have to open it, have to read it. And sometimes if I get an email from Commerce and Insurance and I'm not, I won't tell you whether or not I'm following my own department, but you can imagine there's probably a lot of folks that may or may not, and so that our reach is so limited. So I say all to say we really do depend on the associations in that regard to help us out in that regard. Because we pull all the levers, but then that broadcast may still not be as far reaching as we would like. And so, yeah, and then the carryover PDHs, we sent a blast out just recently, again, to sort of let folks know and be aware of that. And we're getting some feedback. So it's getting out there. Yeah.
I will say also on the carryover, in the last 2 weeks I've had maybe 4 people contact me because those who got a hard copy, they're like, we had no idea. There are people who miss who miss it somehow, some way.
Well,
So-
and if they got a hard copy, they're in good shape.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and I mean, I'm sorry people are upset by it, but there are a lot of disgruntled people, but I'm
And
sorry.
that's part of any adjustment.
It is.
We sort of have to brace for that, and so that's what we're living through right now. But it'll be better the next, into the next year, as that word of mouth and that fire sort of spreads, and then certainly by the next renewal cycle, it'll be a non-issue. But yeah, all right. So Blair, you all have.
Thank you.
that's right.
I'll lead into that. I attended the Council of Landscape Architecture Registration Board's annual conference in Henderson, Nevada, and there were a lot of topics discussed, and it was a really good meeting. So it's about 225 people. It's a relatively small group. There are, I believe, 56 jurisdictions represented. The continental United States and in Canada is also included in CLARB. There was so much good information. I mean, everything from politics to the trend nationwide is to go to 15 PDHs, which I hear on the engineering side is what they're doing. The write-up that you have, if you'll just take some time, not now but later on, just to look at it, some of my takeaways of some of the sessions that were held. Pardon me, there is some Blair language in there, and so you'll have to forgive the typos and things like that. But an interesting thing, for example, continuing education. It was a huge topic because there are 2 jurisdictions that do not require continuing education. The rest of us are shaking our head like, wow, can't believe that's how it is. But that is how it is. And then you have some of the younger folks stand up to say, well, why do we even need continuing education? That doesn't work for, I don't get that, okay? But it was really interesting conversation because the keynote speaker was a fascinating person to listen to. This lady was full of energy, and the title of it was Generation Them, Managing a Multi-Generational Workforce. And the idea is very simple, is that while most boards, not that y'all are older than me, I'm older than you, but most boards are in the latter part of their professional years, whereas if you look and see what's coming up, there are a lot of younger folks behind us, And what they do in their daily lives and what they believe regarding licensure and everything else is different than what ours is. I mean, the world's just different. And so the idea of this session is we as our boards, we need to be prepared for that. There will be changes. And then later on, you know, a day later, this gal gets up and she's trashing continuing education. It's like, okay, there we go. That makes sense, you know, what she was saying. She was fascinating. If you're ever looking for somebody to present to your larger organization to talk about the differences in age groups and sort of how we look at things, she's just a fascinating speaker. So that was really good. The CLARB has changed the landscape architecture registration exam, and it takes place in December. Okay, so the absolute change takes place in December. They've been transitioning it for 18 months, and it's gone surprisingly well. So there are 4 sections, and they've sort of dickered with them a little bit to make them a little more logical, frankly. But now that that the exam is all electronic, it has been for years. They're just trying to consolidate and make it an easier understanding of things. But there are some people who will take a couple of sections of the exam and let it go for 2 or 3 years, and then come back to take another section and another section. And so what this process has done is those who have started their exams but have not completed all 4 sections, well, it got them to the table to get them completed. So it was a really good thing. Every time I attend a CLARB meeting, I'm amazed by how, like all the other societies, NCEES, NCARB, you know, NCIDQ, we're there shoulder to shoulder. Everybody's in there, and they participate in the discussions and talk about what's happening on various sides. That's beneficial for me as well, and I'm sure everybody who's there. One of the what I found surprising from talking to different people and in the presentations is how political some board members' positions are, and how they are expected to play in that political arena. And you know, I don't believe that's how we are, but it was like sort of eye-opening. One of the things that we talked about in the MBM session is what the MBEs, what their lives are like. You know, for example, what Glenn does on a daily basis. And so there were a couple of folks that got up and talked about what they're expected to do, and sometimes they're hardly even in the office because they're out there working the legislature or working different places or in the governor's office and whatever. So realizing what we have here is so different than other places. And one of the really nice and gratifying observations is Tennessee is known as a very conservative board. Okay, that's who they know us as. So CLARB is now coming to me asking me, well, how do you all handle these things? And it's not a derogatory thing. It's like, no, we want to know how you do this. And almost as if, hey, these folks have a good thing going here. Let's see how they handle something like this. So there are many items in here I think you'd be interested in. One of the interesting things that really resulted from me attending that meeting is I came back and we had a session on strategic planning and how we should all of our boards should have a strategic plan. And so I sent a note to Glenn yesterday and said, hey, do we have a strategic plan? Because I don't remember having one. And his reply is in here. But basically, we as a board don't have a strategic plan, but the overall department has a strategic plan. But anyway, I've learned a tremendous amount, so I thank you for allowing me to attend CLARB. And any other thing in here you have questions about, please ask. It was a fascinating meeting, a lot of great information shared, and you know, sorry for the typo.
The record.
CLARB.
Smart and funny. I mean, I'm trying to get what that.
Barb has instituted a uniform standard, okay, the language that they would like for every jurisdiction to include. And they have said to me, we don't believe that this is going to fit with Tennessee. Because in past conversations we've had, is that Tennessee still wants people, like, it's okay to come into our state. If you meet, still have to meet our minimums. For example, the minimum amount of experience. So how different states handle reciprocity coming into the state, and if you have less experience, well, Tennessee's not necessarily going to agree to that.
So we have more stringent.
Rob, I couldn't get you on the mic.
So we have more stringent standards in other states.
Yes. Yes.
Bingo.
That's my understanding of it. And it's not a derogatory type observation. They come to me because they want to know, sort of how we look and how we handle things.
I thought you meant we were all barefoot and wore overalls.
Yeah, it is
no, I
interesting.
never heard that, but if they meant that.
We're from Tennessee.
Yeah.
Frank, they give them that up. I do that all the time. Now everybody says, "Oh, I want to go to Nashville."
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you're right.
Dr. Ash?
About continuing education, we had a speaker in the NCAA's conference, and he made a very interesting point. He said, if you are not going through continuing educations, at some point you're going to be completely disconnected from the current way of practice, that you're going to be considered practicing out of your expertise. Basically, you're not fit to practice.
I agree with that, and I really like continuing education. I require our staff to do continuing education whether they're licensed or not. Okay, I believe it's a good thing, but I stood up and said, look, I bought a car in 1980. Well, I just bought a car in 2023. And the mechanic I've used on my 1980 car for many, many years, he hadn't gone back to learn how to work on a 2023 car. It's really, to me, in my mind, it's really just that simple. When I take my 2023 car in to be fixed, I want someone who's trained properly to work on it. And I know that my profession's changed a tremendous amount since I've been around. I'm sure it's the same way with you all in your profession. So.
I like how he just boils it down, doesn't he?
Yeah,
You know
I think
what I mean?
that works. Thank you. Yeah.
I think the food is here, but I think the committee reports, which should be pretty quick, and then public comments, which should be pretty quick. And then if we can break at 1 and be back at 1:45, that just leaves the legal report, and then that gives plenty of time to do that. So if it pleases the chair to do that, we'll go ahead and do the committee reports. Would that be okay? Okay. All right. In that case, then, Grants Committee.
Okay, thank you. The Grants Committee met this morning. Almost everybody was here for that anyway. Just so everybody knows, as a recap, we received 17 applications. That's not everybody that's eligible, but that's what we received, totaling nearly $472,000. We used the same methodology and calculations and formula to calculate what everybody was to receive. Out of the 17, 8 actually received their full request. That should be good for those 8. They'd be proud of that, pleased to see that. But we were able to successfully award the full $400,000, and I'm assuming, when will those go out, Glenn?
February.
In February. Very good. Okay, thank you. That's the report, unless there's any questions.
Thank you guys for digging into that and out and doing the heavy lift on the spreadsheet too. Appreciate that. We will need a vote on that. The recommendation was to approve that that number 5 document there, which was the award schedule. So that is the motion. We just need a second.
Motion and a second. All in favor signify by aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
And for the record, who was the second? I missed that. Oh, gotcha, Dr. Ash. Thank you. All right. Right, it looks like we're ready then for the architects as well.
The architect committee, we reviewed an application that was a little different, that it didn't come from a NAAB accredited program, but after we reviewed it, we did feel like it met the requirements of the state, and we'll have our official approval when we sign it, but we feel confident to move forward with approval for it. And that was all we discussed.
Very much. Public comments period related to items on the agenda before we do the legal report, and then after this we'll break for lunch. Let me just take a look, see if anyone sneaked in behind me. Nobody? No one on the list. And then seeing no one but our paralegal back there, and I don't think that he's going to be coming forward. I think at that point, I think we're safe to break for lunch. So, Mr. Thompson, if you would, we'll just recess then.
Are we going to the cafeteria?
We're going to go upstairs to where we met this morning for our informational session. We're just going to go up there, and then we're going to try to be back here at 1:45. So, and then if we need a little more time, we can do that. Yes, sir.
Rob, you want to?
The question is, if the legal report is not lengthy, rather than running a loop, why don't we just run through it and go eat?
I thought about that, but then your chicken's getting cold.
Oh.
So, and you know, but I don't know how long it'll take. Sometimes we get bogged down in some of the report. So, I mean, if we could take a break for 30 minutes and just eat our food, come back, and then wrap it up. You good with that?
Your choice. I was just thinking we could save it.
What's the pleasure of the
board?
30 or 45 minutes.
Cold chicken.
Straw poll. 30 minutes.
30 minutes in.
Need a motion for that?
All right. No.
Yeah. I know we're doing a straw poll. That's good.
All right.
enough.
So 1:30, we'll be back down here, and then we'll handle the legal report. All right. That sounds good.
That sounds good. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, sir. We're recessing.
Everybody good with that? All right. We're on recess.
You would like to call it back to order, then we can get going.
Yes, the meeting is called back to order.
All right. Where we left it off was legal, and looks like we have the legal report.
All right, number one on the legal report is 2023-034-161. Respondent self-reported that he'd been practicing on expired license since March 31st, 2021. Respondent discovered there was a problem with the registration while making an application for a project with the Tennessee State Fire Marshal's Office. Respondent stamped plans on 31 projects from April 1st, 2021 through July 11th, 2023. Respondent has since renewed his license. So we're reviewed by Brian Tibbs. Mitigating factors is self-reported. Aggravating factors is practicing on expired license. Recommendation is authorize a civil penalty of $3,100 by consent order and former charges for practicing on expired license and pass the laws and rules exam.
Move that we approve.
Motion. Can we second?
Second.
Discussion on this.
Yeah, I have a question. Normally, it seems like we have been assessing $500 per sealed plans. And I know this one is $100 per sealed plans. Is there any reason we're playing favorite to this guy?
Frank, I'm sorry, Chairman.
Oh. Al.
So thank you. I apologize.
Thank you for raising your.
I didn't follow the protocol. I apologize. I know we have exercised discretion on stuff like this in the past, Frank. In fact, several of the last ones I've done, I didn't think rose to the level of endangering the public health, safety, or welfare. And we've gone $200, $250 per incident. I know there's probably, I guess, in Brian's review, and I'll ask Brian you to comment, but with 31 offenses, that would be. And look, I know the purpose is to get their attention.
I'll interject real quick because Stuart and I talked. We emailed about it, and I think it was a precedent that we looked at, Stuart. So that's totally what it was based upon.
We've done it a number of times in the past, and I know I personally have made recommendations a number of times in the past. The statute says 500 to 1,000, civil penalties 500 to 1,000, but we have the latitude to adjust that, I guess based on the offense.
Yeah, I think that was the reason I was asking the question. And to Brian, I guess, were these projects the type projects that, were they large projects? Were they house garage additions? What?
You know, I can't remember, but it seemed like it was just a mixture of all kinds of them. Yeah, I can't remember like what exactly each specific. I can't remember. It seemed like it was just a mixture of a whole bunch of different kinds.
I'm trying to go through to see it. They were small projects and mainly just like structural letters or things like that. So that's why there's a volume of 31. But I mean, we have lowered it in the past because of the volume of projects. But we also look at what type of projects there were, what the action was, and what they were actually stamping. So that was one of the reasons why we made that recommendation.
Well, if I think we all need to just think through as we progress. Is it going to be $100 per incident, or is it going to be $500 per incident? I mean, if it says 500 to 1,000, am I correct? That's what it says. Right. You have the latitude to do it differently than that. We have done that, and I understand if there were letters and things like that, but 31 as 10 per year seems pretty substantial. I could do projects and $500 for it. I wouldn't, but I just don't want to let that set a precedent for people that they don't really. Everybody forgets, of course. They don't. So.
Well, certainly, I'd be no objection if we felt like it. We were just making it off of just because of the type, but no objection if we want to go higher.
Well, I'm not making a suggestion for a number. I'm just making a point for the board. Is that appropriate? And it would be a friendly amendment, I would imagine, or if not, I mean, it's whatever the board wants to do. I'm just saying what Alton has said.
I think in the past we've left it kind of to the reviewer's discretion, because they're the ones that actually get to look at and see what was signed and sealed.
Yeah, the only reason I brought it up is I know we have discretion, but I don't want the next guy who did 3 projects get fined $1,500 and they go, why did you let this guy? And one way, and again, I'm just throwing this out, but one way to maybe resolve that is, if 5 of them are a 2-page report, or 10 of them, or 20 of them are 2-page report, $100 sounds fine. If 5 of them are, $15 million hospital projects, that's a different story. And it's kind of like Rick said, if you can get away with this for $3,100 when you've done, $80 million worth of work, that you've sealed.
Good point.
Those are 2 different things.
Very much so. And again, if it was something like that would have affected public health, safety, and welfare, I agree that the penalty should be much more. At that point, I suppose what you're doing is going through each individual offense, engaging, well, what's the value of that versus something else? Should we max out the civil penalty on this one and minimize it on another one? Again, to me, that would still be at the reviewer's discretion.
I just say, I found that it's they sealed specifications only.
Specifications for what?
For different projects.
I know, but I mean, we're like Frank and Rick were pointing out. Do they rise to the level of endangering the public's health, safety, and welfare? Like, are they occupancy buildings, like schools or daycare facilities, or are they just garage extensions?
They're renovations, sports and complexes. garage renovations.
I think I should go back through it and just upon this board's recommendation and go back through each one and making sure that, looking at that as far as the magnitude. I could do that, and then we could bring it back next month, next meeting.
That's what you want to do.
I think that would be fair and reasonable.
Yeah,
Plus, we don't want to set a precedent for somebody who, like I said, designed a seal to daycare and got $100.
Be willing to
penalty
do
for it.
that. We could
Yeah.
bring it back if I don't know how you change that for the.
I think we can just pass it to the next meeting. I'm not sure if that, yeah.
Earl or.
I don't think it have a friendly amendment motion.
I think that's the Robert's rules. You have a motion and a second. You can now amend it. Yeah.
You have to withdraw your motion, don't you?
Withdraw your motion.
I think I made it. All right.
Whoever made the second.
I withdraw.
Second and withdraw. Now, can we get another?
Make a new motion that
new
we defer to
motion?
the next meeting.
Yeah, and all right, we have a motion to defer to the next meeting, so Brian can do a little bit more investigation as to what those 31 projects are. Got a motion? We have a second.
Second.
We got a motion and a second. All in
I'll second.
favor? Or additional comments?
No.
No? Okay. All right. All in favor signify by aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Number 2, 2023-035-241. Respondent self-reported they inadvertently let his license lapse when renewing the NCARB certificate. Respondent stated he worked on projects, however, he did not seal any plans. And after review, it was determined these projects did not require a seal. Respondent also stated he usually works as an expert for trials dealing with construction. Respondent checked his records and stated he did not testify during the expiration period, and respondent has since renewed his license. This was reviewed by Frank Waxter. Mitigating factors: no use of seal on projects, and did not testify as an expert during the expiration period, and the recommendation is to close.
Move we accept the recommendation.
A motion, a second.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any
Just as a consideration, I'm sorry. Normally in a situation where somebody fails to renew, we at least make them take and pass the laws and rules exam, and I don't know if that's merited in this situation or not. He renewed his license and he continues to practice, right? Okay.
Call the question.
All right, so all in favor of the original motion, signify by aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. But that was a good point, Alan.
Number 3 is 2023-046-751. Respondent self-reported they have been practicing on expired license since December 31st, 2022. Respondent stamped plans on one project in May of 2023. Respondent has since renewed his license. It was reviewed by Rick Thompson. Mitigating factors self-reported. Aggravating factors is practicing on an expired license. Recommendation is authorize a civil penalty of $500 by consent order and formal charges for practicing on an expired license and pass the laws and rules exam.
The motion, we have a motion.
Make a motion to approve with recommendation.
Got a motion to approve.
Second.
Second. Any additional conversation, questions? All in favor signify.
Aye.
Aye.
Number 4 is 2023-042581. Respondent is not registered as an architect yet is making public use of the appellation of architecture in the business name and on the business website. Respondent states they were given advice that using architecture was legal and proper. Respondent also states they do not offer architecture services or represent himself as one. From a review of the website, it appears that the respondent is claiming to be an architect, i.e., launched his architecture career. Respondent claims to offer design services. This was reviewed by Frank Waxter. Aggravating factors: using the appellation of architecture without registration. Recommendation is authorize a civil penalty of $1,500 by consent order and formal charges by making public use of appellation of architecture and offering the practice of architecture while not registered.
I have a recommendation. Can I get a motion to approve?
So moved.
Motion.
I'll second.
Motion is second. Any additional conversation?
Yes. This is where I get confused about discussing engineering or PE, architecture. So I think that it's real tricky I think it's fairly common on websites for people to provide architectural services. And my confusion is, does that mean that they are an architect, that they should be a professional architect? And my opinion is yes, they should. But I think that gets into this overall discussion, and I think that's what this is, the way I interpret this. So.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Thank you for comments. All in favor of the motion signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Recommendation. Motion on the if that recommend.
Motion to approve recommendation.
As using the appellation architect.
Oh, I'm sorry.
He was calling himself an engineer.
That's carryover, okay. Got a motion and a second. Do we have a second? Second motion.
Second it.
Oh, okay. Second. Now we can have the. I guess from my perspective, you take number 4 and number 5. They don't seem to add up to proper penalties. Basically the same thing.
He's not offering engineering services. He's not offering to do design services. He's a home handyman, and he's just trying to brag to folks that he's got a mechanical engineering degree from an ABET accredited school, and that's what and he does. So he's not holding himself out to be providing engineering services. He's fixing sinks and painting walls, I think.
In comparison to the previous one where the website states they're providing architectural design services, that to me would be the distinction.
I think that's
here.
the difference. He's not offering any engineering. He's trying to give people a resume to
In this case,
I'm a
Which is in fact,
I'm a
that
graduate
would-
engineer. I'm going to come paint your house.
Here we go. Yeah, but that would be a fact. He's stating a fact.
Yeah.
in this case, why the fine then?
I'm sorry?
Why the fine then in this case?
Well, I didn't want to, but But our legal attorney, no, I'll tell you the truth. I thought, A, he's not under our jurisdiction anyway. He's not that. B, he clearly didn't intend to do it. C, somebody got a burr in their saddle and decided to pick on him. And
I can tell you why.
And I know why you did it, but
because
you
the
can
rule
tell them.
says you can't use the appellation if you're not registered, and that's they're
calling him.
Stuart and I had a back and forth about that. I said, write him a letter, tell him to quit doing it and forget it. And he said we ought to fine him $250. So I said, okay.
Was there? I know our public member had a comment, and then did somebody else from the left have a comment? I saw Alton or James. Did y'all have a comment? Because I know our Jeff was going to comment, and then want to make sure we get everybody. Yeah, go ahead, Jeff. Need you on there. Yeah.
And talk about, is there anything that states you can talk about your history, your education, your experience, as long as you put a disclaimer that says, I am not a licensed blank?
There's nothing in the rule. The rule clearly states that if you use the appellation engineer, architecture, landscape, anything, and you're not registered, then that's a violation. But there's nothing in there that says if you put in a disclaimer, which if they did put a disclaimer in, we probably wouldn't do anything, because then they're not making themselves out to the public that this is what they do, or And I know this guy is not offering the services, but he's still using engineer, and there's no distinction as well. I can say I'm an engineer from this school and try to get around the rule. I mean, the rule is just if you use it, you got to be registered, and that's why I made that recommendation. But to be lower, more of a slap on the hand, hey, you can't do that, or at least make some type of disclaimer that I'm not offering engineering practices or services or something like that. I'm only doing construction.
Resume.
And he was a mechanical engineer. He was in practice, but he was under supervision. So he was an employee under that supervision of a licensed mechanical engineer. So he would not have to be registered at that time.
Did he call himself an engineer?
He said, I am a mechanical engineer. I am a degreed mechanical engineer, and also I am a mechanical engineer.
Which he was not at the time.
He is not.
Because he let his license lapse. Okay.
So in a similar token, if somebody's calling him or herself engineering training or AIT, is that a violation of any rule?
It's an appellation of engineer.
Or even if they're training or basically, it's still a violation.
Depends on if they're under registered supervision. So it just depends on the situation.
Should the recommendation include something about him changing that language on his website or in his resume, so that he doesn't? Because if he doesn't, then he's going to continue to be violating the law going forward.
We could do like a letter of caution instead of a fine. We can do like a letter of caution, and in that letter explain what's going on, because that probably should have went down to a letter of caution instead of a penalty, but I can explain in that letter what the issue is and then have him change it. Put some type of disclaimer. I think, if you say I'm a degreed mechanical engineer, it's a different situation than saying I am a mechanical engineer.
I think that's a distinction that the general public is not able to make.
Yes. Yeah. And people don't really, sometimes they make a difference, say, I'm an engineer versus I'm a professional engineer. They think that because they have the degree, they call themselves engineers. And they're not calling themselves professional engineer. That's still a violation, based on my understanding.
I don't think the laws and rules say professional engineer or professional architect. They just say engineer or architect.
It's just engineer, architect.
Yeah.
Or any appellation thereof.
Need to comment that he's not. So if he is fined, and he says, "Well, I'm not going to pay that," what happens?
Well, I mean, we would go to a formal hearing.
Then if he blows off the formal hearing, then you can you just keep escalating it until some point. I mean, you could. Well,
You
you
get a
gotta get
default.
service. Yeah.
I mean, you still
Yeah,
get a default.
default.
But then if he didn't pay it, then it would go to collections.
So as the motion stands now, it's still $250. And then there was some discussion about not fining him, but making him take the laws and rules. And I think that's even less of a penalty.
I think we talked about a letter of caution to explain what the issue is.
Know what the issue obviously hasn't. That's my opinion. I'm making a suggestion that it. Another motion.
How would everybody feel with the 250 penalty and then add the letter of caution? Too much?
Pass the law.
Say it again.
He's not licensed.
Keep the penalty of 250 and add the letter of caution.
Letter of caution would go with the letter of you owe us $250.
Yeah, I mean, that'll be in the consent order, the proposed consent order, so that it'll.
It's part of it. Okay.
Yeah, it's part of it.
It'll tell him he's got to take that off his website.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the motion on the floor is still accurate. Motion in the second is still accurate.
But I think you want to amend it as to taking it off the website or providing a disclaimer on top of the penalty.
That could be added to the letter of caution. Yeah.
Well, it needs to be added to the recommendation, because the recommendation is just a penalty.
So there needs to be a friendly amendment from someone. Who
Let me
made
get
this?
this right. It's my understanding this guy never was a registered engineer.
No, correct.
So he's a.
And he's
It was
not
exempt.
practicing engineering, and nor is he offering to provide engineering.
Well, taking the
Just happens
laws
to
and
have an
rules
engineering
exam doesn't
degree.
make sense to me.
Problem is, nobody gonna read the rules unless they are up for registration. So,
You know,
nobody reads them, nobody
yeah.
knows them.
I mean, we can take this a little further. You can go in any industrial company today, any one of them, and you'll find a dozen positions that are listed as engineer.
But they have the industrial exemption.
But it's still confusing to people. I mean, it's still confusing.
They can only practice inside that plant, not outside that plant.
They call themselves an engineer.
They do.
Because that's their title.
It is, but they
And that-
can't practice outside.
Well, take outside
Or
of the
He's not
manufacturing.
practicing
What about
engineering.
contractors?
He's just calling himself an engineer, just like the guy at Nissan is.
He doesn't enjoy the industrial exemption that they would.
Well, the industrial exemption is something that not many people other than us know about.
Do contractors have an industrial exemption?
No.
There are many contractors who at one point, like I've seen several cases, contractors in our area where they were a PE, when they went to this construction company, they let their license go, but they still, on their business card and in their tagline, they are an engineer.
And
So that's a violation.
We've actually had complaints that we've taken action on exactly in that scenario.
Unless they're subcontracting. And there was I was reading recently, it said something that, I don't know if it was in the policy or if it's in their own statute, but if they can use, loosely apply appellation of engineer if they're subcontracting. They can say they're offering those services if they're subcontracting, because then the person they're hiring is an engineer, licensed engineer. So it is, to your point though, there's I mean, you saw this discussion we just had right here. It is, there is some discussion, there is some confusion, I think, from the general public as to the use of that term and how it applies. And you know, I heard someone say something to the effect of maybe over here about most folks that would take the laws and rules exam would be people in the profession that want to be registered, because that's where it applies. So to make somebody, Joe Q Public, that has no interest in becoming a registered or a professional engineer, then what would be the purpose of the laws and rules exam?
They wouldn't take that, right.
So, and then there was a couple, the debate kind of went one way and another. It was 250, which comes with an agreed citation with instruction, but that fine is 250. That's formal discipline. Or, which, and this is an entirely different route, a letter of caution, which is not discipline, is just our letter as a board to him with instruction, same instruction, just one's discipline, one is not.
Given Rob's explanation of what this guy's doing, that seems like it would be more appropriate. I'll defer to Rob.
What would be more appropriate?
The letter of caution. I'm sorry. The last thing you said, the letter of caution instead of the $250 fine.
Outside.
I don't know who made the motion. Let me amend the motion to the recommendation to say we send the guy a letter of caution, tell him to quit doing it.
That's it.
Is there a second to that? Can I get an amen?
We have a motion to amend the recommendation to a letter of caution.
Second.
And eliminate the $250 fine. We have a motion and a second. Any additional conversation?
Only I made the original motion. I think so. I made the motion. He did the amendment. Right. That's how we're doing it. Okay.
I'm offering an amendment to your motion. Will you accept it?
Yeah.
Bingo.
Yeah. That's it.
I've got like a diagram here. It's just like starting to grow. You know?
Who's taking notes?
Can we get a blackboard over here? I want to be able.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor of that motion signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Aye.
That brings a good point. Who's going to be responsible for educating kids coming out of school and calling themselves engineering training or engineer, not PE? You know, some sort of education here or explanation has to take place, and I'm wondering how that can be done.
I thought that when they passed the FE, that they got a notification that you can use the appellation EI, or engineering intern, or EI, engineering training. But, well, I guess that's indefinite, because you're always going to be an EI. You may or may not be a PE at some point in your career, but you'll always be an EI.
And those aggravating, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, an EIT is a designated group of individuals who have gone through this training or in the middle of training. Why would that be a violation of Tennessee law? That doesn't.
The real confusion I see is when somebody calls himself engineer versus professional engineer. That's a confusion still out there in the community, and that needs to be cleared up to people.
But the laws specifically state engineer, not EI or engineering training. It specifically says engineer or architect.
Yes, they do.
So the person that takes care of our large office building refers to himself as the building engineer or facility engineer. Is that in violation?
That's a title, and that's a violation.
That's a violation.
Yeah, and it's everywhere.
Well, I'm going to make a list
The
for you
garbage man
guys.
is a
I'm telling
sanitation
you.
engineer.
Well, I will, just from my perspective, as we have a young man that recent graduate, and he was telling everyone he was an architect because he graduated from architecture school, and I reminded him of where his place was, and told him that if he wanted to continue doing that, I might have to file a complaint, and he didn't understand because no one had told him from a university that he couldn't do that. He said, well, I thought I could, I'm an architect. I said, no, you're not. I said, are you doing NCARB and all that? He said, yeah. I said, and what's your title? So, but the public, I think he actually knew, but the public, that's where the confusion is. It should not be within the profession. And you know, if someone represents themselves as an engineer or an architect, they should be sanctioned for that and fined for that. That's why I voted no.
Number 6, 2023-041-541. Respondent stated yes, that he had practiced on an expired license on his reapplication. Respondent states he misunderstood the question and has been working under responsible charge since he was first licensed. Respondent has not stamped any plans while expired. As reviewed by Rick Thompson, there were no violations found, and recommendation is to close.
We have a recommendation to close on this complaint. Can we get a motion? Second?
Second.
Second. How about questions, conversation?
I got one question is, so he read his form and checked the wrong box?
He didn't understand that from what our conversations Stuart and I had, and Stuart had with him, is was not actually practicing architecture. He was working for a firm, and he did not renew his license. But then he went back to renew it and checked the box because he thought he didn't understand the difference between letting his license lapse and practicing on a lapsed license. He was not practicing. He works for a firm. So
He actually didn't have to be registered while he was practicing. So when he said, I practice on an expired license, he didn't even have to be registered at the time.
He's not sealing drawings in any way.
Right. Yeah, it wasn't.
working under the responsible charge of an architect.
Right. And so it was just a misunderstanding.
Have a motion, or can we get a motion to accept?
Thank you.
Do we have
We
that?
have a
Did we
motion
get a
and a
second
second.
too? I'm sorry.
Oh, we all did that.
We're good. Okay. All in favor of the motion signify by aye.
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 Opposed? The ayes have it. The motion carries.
Bingo.
Bingo.
Chair, we're ready for new business, if there is any.
Open. New business.
Motion to adjourn.
If there's no new business, you can adjourn, Chair.
Being there is no new business, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you for all being here today. All right. And we're looking forward to passing the gavel right here. So next time. And she's buying lunch.